It is repetition which makes for perfection.
I will do a demonstration on hair. So today is a hair day. Okay, so let's go through. I'm going to quickly do just like a base head. Okay, I'm not going to go too detail on this. I'll kind of scribble something. Okay, so I'm going to just knock this out in the background so we have something to look at. The basis, the core of it for me, there's a lot of different ways I've seen people draw hair. For today, I'm just going to show you how I would draw hair, and when it comes down to comics. Let's say like one of the guys I really like to draw is Grifter. You guys know I was the original artist on the Grifter series back in the day. We're talking like 200 years ago. So what I like to tell people to do is, if you can draw an S, this is the core of how I break down my hair. It's just a bunch of S's. Sometimes the S goes this way, sometimes it goes this way. Sometimes I'll draw it long, sometimes I'll draw it short, or I'll squiggle. Actually, I won't ever do this. You'll probably see me do this, and then this, and then this, but I'll try to break it up a little bit, kind of break it up a little bit. But that's the basis of it, okay? So what I like to do is try to get a sense of what kind of character this is. If he has long hair, the hair's going to be long. I know the hair's going to fit something like this, so I kind of get a sense of it. Or if the hair is going to be kind of short, if he's going to have like a high top type of feel. Well, is the hair going to have something shorter, maybe something like this. So this, when I scribble it this fast, this is just so I can get a sense of it before I actually go down and actually start doing something. So let's say I was drawing someone with short hair. Okay, so someone with short hair, I would probably just scribble it. Well, not probably, I know I would do it. This is how I do it. I would just go ahead and scribble the entire shape out like this. Then once I have the basic shape, what I'm looking for, then I'm going to go through and just kind of draw some short S's. Now the reason it's done in this style, it's because this is what it's just trying to transition to after years and years of doing comics, drawing all kinds of hairstyles on all kinds of characters. This is pretty much what it just says transition to. Now, if his hair was a little bit longer, obviously I would pull it like this. I'm literally like kind of just drawing like fire. Think about it kind of almost like I'm drawing a lot of fire, pieces of fire. So this is a fire kind of breaking off, and then you have little, little flames here and there. That's pretty much all I'm doing with the hair. So I'm trying to keep it, everything is just an S. Now if this character had long hair, I would probably draw the hair. Why do I keep saying probably? I know I would do it. So this is the format how I would break up the hair. I'm not too concerned about detail, meaning how clean the thing is, because you can always go back and clean it up. Right now, it's still somewhat in a semi sketch phases. So sketch phase. It's almost like you're drawing from feeling rather than reality, or so like a template. Don't try not to think too much of structure. Well, you want to think of structure, but not try not to get too rigid in your style, in your line work. Because if you stay rigid, your hair is going to look stiff, and it won't look like it's flowing. It won't look like there's wind going through it. So just stick with drawing a bunch of S-type feelings like this. If you do this, you can break down here a lot easier. And once I have something like that, okay, if it's a blonde hair or blonde character, um, I would leave it blonde. I would just leave it open. If it's a red hair, you'd leave it open. Maybe I'd go in and do a little bit of shading. But the moment it starts getting to a brown, like brown hair or black hair or some kind of grayish color hair, something like that, obviously you're going to want to do some shading. So in the past, I've shown you guys this technique where I've scribbled stuff like this before on the side and just kind of scribble something, and then you go through and you kind of break it down. I try to lock it down, lock down that shape, and just outline the dark areas. So that's one way of that's the actual way I'm going to fill in the hair. So once I have that, the next thing I'm going to do is think of lighting now. So I'm going to go through and just kind of scribble some shapes in there. And then remember, I'm not concerned too much about how beautiful it's going to look, how perfect the hair is going to come out. So I'm trying to think of flow. How is this just going to flow, and how is gravity going to naturally pull on this group of hair that's falling on someone's shoulder? Now, once I have this basic look to it, remember a lot of it's going to be redrawn. Now I go back and start to solidify certain areas. Just isolate that, reinforce all those dark areas that you're doing, and you're painting happy hair strands, like you know, Mr. Bob Ross. Mr. Bob Ross. I used to love watching Bob Ross. I still watch him. I was just watching him the other day. Actually, I was on YouTube and I was watching some old 1980s reruns of Bob Ross painting happy trees. Bob Ross was the man. That's the guy I used to paint. I used to learn how to paint when I was like in the 7th and 8th grade. 9th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. I used to sit and watch him on TV. I think he was on PBS or something. So now you can see how I just pull that out of that. Like you get a nice little flow out of it. And you know, and the moment it goes into inks, it starts to look, as you can see, I'm just multiplying it right now. You start to get like a sense of what it's going to look like. Just remember, when you're drawing your hair and your characters, I'm going to start over again on this one. Let's say this guy had, let's say he had, remember, I'm thinking shape. Let's say okay, this guy is thinking shapes at first. Okay, he has a crazy looking style here, his ears here, and he's bald all here on the side. Or maybe he has a, you know, a fade or something that's going off. So now I'm like, okay, this character is doing this, okay? So now go through, just draw a bunch of S's. Don't worry about if your lines cross or across, you know, another line like that. Don't worry about that. You can clean all that up later. Right now, you're just concerned about just getting the flow. Make sure everything's flowing right with the character here. And it looks good. It looks like something that, okay, I can work with this. Now you have something to work with. Now, so you go through and start adding detail. Go in, add more strands like this. You can break that up a little bit more. And this is if I'm going blonde or something. This, even though it's coming out, you know, kind of rough or a little bit messy in this area, don't worry about it. That's what erasers are for. So you can easily get your eraser. Make sure it's not too intense. And just kind of lightly erase it. Go back. Oops. And now reinforce it. And if this was dark here, you would go through. You want to keep in mind of highlights too. Where's the hair? Where's the peak of the bend? And where am I going to create the highlights? So right now I'm just keeping in mind, okay, I want some kind of highlights on those guys here. So now I kind of get a sense of it. You're like, okay, I get a sense of this. Get your pencil, reinforce those shapes, add a couple strands here and there. Now, if this guy had, let's say he had a beard, okay? What I like to do whenever I have something round, is a round object, which is going to be a chin. What I remember telling you guys in the past is if you have a hot spot and you're trying to render something that's gonna be black down here or darker in this area, you want to render towards the lights. So you want to render towards the lights. So I'm thinking his chin is a round spot. There's a hot spot here, which actually is. If you do the breakdowns of it, let's do the breakdowns of that. So if his mouth was here and his bottom lip was here, it means he's going to have this type of shape to him. Okay. It means if you break it down as a grid, it already has this round shape to it already. Okay. So now I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to go with it. So that means if it's round, if there's a round shape already, there's a hot spot and then there's a dark area. So I'm keeping in mind there's a hot spot here. So I'm going to render towards the light. That's the first group of lines I'm going to do, is render towards the light. And I would do the same thing if it was blonde beard, if he had, a dark, black beard or brownish, or he had like a reddish kind of beard. And all I'm going to do is just layer it. So I'm pretty much doing like one group of lines like this, and then in the second group of lines I'm just going to just slightly change the direction. And then you can, with this, you can go back and forth a little bit like this too. Just kind of scribble some lines back and forth to kind of mess with it a little bit. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is if you just throw like a bunch of short lines like this, and you just go ahead and layer it like this, and reinforce it back and forth. And as you're getting closer to this light, start to space it out. Start to space it out a little bit like this. And the further away from the light you go, the more intense you want to get. And keep going over it until it looks right. Looks right. Okay, this is something. You kind of get a sense of this. And now you have this hot spot here, and then it gets a little bit darker, and then now it's the darkest in this region, all back here. So that's how you want to think of it as you're rendering a beard. The top part of his lip depends on how intense it is. If it was a light, 5 o'clock shadow type of thing going on, you just kind of just give him some stubbles like this. If it's a little bit more intense, then just go ahead and just get intense with it. But I'm thinking there's a bright area here, and everything's round, which is true because the face is going to have this round type of feel like this. So it's going to be hot over here because this is actually the closest to your eye.
I wish to thank you for your kind reception and bid you a fond farewell.